My husband laughed in my face when I told him I could run his company without him. You wouldn't last a week, sweetheart, he said, his bourbon-soaked confidence filling our marble foyer as I stood there in my evening gown, humiliated once again in front of his business partners. That night, I walked out with nothing but my dignity and a secret he'd forgotten I knew, one that would cost him everything. What happened next was a revenge, though that's what everyone called it. It was something far more satisfying, proof. And the morning he woke up to find his empire had a new CEO, the look on his face made every sleepless night worth it. If you're curious how a woman erased from her own success story rewrote the ending entirely, you're in the right place. Comment where you're watching from, and like and subscribe for more stories. The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow across the dining room of the Harper mansion, their light dancing off champagne flutes and the carefully arranged centerpieces. Olivia Harper moved through the space with practiced grace, her emerald dress complementing the elegant decor she'd spent weeks planning. Tonight was important, Ethan's quarterly dinner with the board members and key investors of Harper Holdings. "More wine, Mr. Patterson?" Olivia asked, her smile warm and genuine as she approached one of the senior partners. "Please," he replied, then leaned back in his chair. "You know, Olivia, I was reading your proposal on the Southeast Asia expansion. Really innovative thinking, especially the localized supply chain approach." Olivia's eyes brightened. "Thank you. I've been studying their market dynamics for months, and I really think if we—" "She's been watching too much CNBC," Ethan interrupted with a hearty laugh, placing his hand on Olivia's shoulder with just enough pressure to feel possessive. "My wife likes to play CEO when I'm not around. Isn't that adorable?" The table erupted in polite laughter. Patterson smiled awkwardly, raising his glass in a noncommittal toast. Olivia's smile never wavered, but her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the wine bottle. She'd learned long ago that reacting only gave Ethan more ammunition. "Well, someone has to keep things interesting around here," she said lightly, filling Patterson's glass before moving on to the next guest. Later, after the last guests had departed and the catering staff had cleaned up, Olivia found Ethan in his study, swirling whiskey in a crystal tumbler. He was riding high on the evening's success, his ego inflated by the compliments and congratulations. "Another successful quarter," he announced, not looking up from his phone. "Harper Holdings is unstoppable. You know what Patterson told me? He said we're positioned to dominate the entire sector within 2 years." "That's wonderful," Olivia said, unbuckling her heels and setting them by the door. "Of course, he doesn't see the half of it. The real genius is in the mergers I'm planning." Ethan finally looked at her, his expression shifting to something between amusement and condescension. "You wouldn't understand the complexities, sweetheart. This isn't interior design or party planning. This is real business, high-stakes strategic warfare." Olivia said nothing, simply nodded, and turned toward the bedroom. She'd heard variations of this speech countless times. Each word was designed to diminish her, to remind her that in Ethan's world, she was ornamental, beautiful, useful for appearances, but ultimately expendable. "You wouldn't last a week without me," Ethan called after her, chuckling at his own joke. "Harper Holdings would crumble if left in your capable but, let's be honest, inexperienced hands." Olivia closed the bedroom door behind her, finally allowing her smile to drop. She walked to her private office, a small room Ethan rarely entered, dismissing it as her hobby space, and opened her laptop. The screen illuminated her face as dozens of folders appeared: market analyses, financial projections, strategic proposals, supplier contracts, and detailed business plans. Every major decision Ethan had made in the past 5 years was rooted in documents she'd prepared. Every brilliant instinct he claimed was actually her research, her insights, her strategy. She'd been the architect of Harper Holdings' success, working in the shadows while he took the spotlight. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Coffee tomorrow? Need to talk to you about something important." Olivia typed back. 10 a.m. The usual place. The next morning, Olivia met Rachel Chen at a discreet cafe downtown, far from the circles where they might run into anyone from Ethan's world. Rachel was more than her best friend. She was a senior financial analyst at one of the city's top firms, brilliant and unflinchingly honest. "You look tired," Rachel observed, stirring sugar into her cappuccino. "Ethan hosted another dinner last night. You know how those go." Rachel's expression darkened. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Liv, I've been hearing things. Ethan's making moves, big ones, and from what I can tell, he's restructuring in ways that would completely cut you out." Olivia's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "He's hired 3 new executives in the past month, all of them reporting directly to him. He's created a new tier of management that essentially walls off the board from any influence you might have. And..." Rachel hesitated, her voice dropping. "He's been meeting with lawyers. Corporate lawyers who specialize in asset protection and marital dissolution." The words hung in the air between them. Olivia had suspected something was shifting, but hearing it confirmed felt like ice water in her veins. "He's building a fortress," Rachel continued. "One where you're locked outside." Olivia stared into her coffee, her mind racing. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. Thank you for telling me." Rachel reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," Olivia admitted. But even as she said it, strategies were already forming in her mind. That evening, Olivia returned home earlier than usual. Ethan was still at the office, which gave her the perfect opportunity. She moved through his study with purpose, careful not to disturb anything that might alert him to her presence. In the locked drawer of his desk, she knew where he kept the key. She found what she was looking for: an unsigned contract, stamped with the Harper Holdings seal. As she read through the dense legal language, her worst fears materialized on the page before her. The contract outlined a new corporate structure that would transfer complete control to Ethan, dissolving the advisory capacity she'd maintained. More damning was the attached document, a post-nuptial agreement that would separate their assets, leaving her with a settlement, but absolutely no claim to the company. The company she'd built with him. The company she'd actually built for him. Olivia photographed every page with her phone, her hands steady despite the fury building inside her. She returned everything to its exact position and locked the drawer. 2 nights later, Harper Holdings hosted its annual gala, a glittering affair where the city's elite gathered to network and be seen. Olivia wore a stunning burgundy gown, her hair swept up elegantly, playing the role of the perfect executive wife. She was in conversation with the mayor's chief of staff when Ethan's voice carried across the room. He was holding court with a group of investors, his laughter loud and self-assured. "Of course, Olivia has her strengths," he was saying. "She's creative, artistic, great at making things look beautiful. But business? Strategy? That's a different game entirely. That's a man's game, if we're being honest." The men around him chuckled, some uncomfortably, others with full-throated agreement. Olivia felt eyes turning toward her, waiting to see if she'd react. She raised her champagne flute slightly, acknowledging she'd heard, and smiled graciously. But her hand trembled. Just slightly. She excused herself and made her way to the ladies' room, where she gripped the marble counter and stared at her reflection. This was who she'd become, a woman who swallowed humiliation with a smile, who made herself smaller so her husband could feel larger. When she returned to the ballroom, she moved through the crowd with renewed purpose, making connections, laughing at jokes, being the charming Mrs. Harper everyone expected. But something inside her had shifted. A door had closed, and another, one she'd been afraid to open, was beginning to crack. Later that night, back at the mansion, Ethan was euphoric from the evening's success. He poured himself another drink, his 3rd or 4th. Olivia had lost count. "Did you see Harrison's face when I told him about the Tokyo deal? He nearly fell over himself trying to get in on it." Ethan loosened his tie, sprawling on the leather sofa. "This is what separates the winners from everyone else. Vision. Guts. The ability to make the tough calls." Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the manicured grounds lit by subtle landscaping lights. "I could do it, you know," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Run Harper Holdings. Make those tough calls." The silence that followed was filled with Ethan's disbelief, then his laughter, deep, mocking, dismissive laughter that seemed to echo off the walls. "You? Run my company. He laughed harder, nearly spilling his drink. Oh, sweetheart. That's adorable. Really? You think because you read a few business books and attend some dinner parties that you could handle what I do? Olivia turned to face him, her expression calm. Go ahead then, Ethan said, still chuckling. See how far you get without me. Without my name, my connections, my reputation. You'd be eaten alive in a week. He drained his glass and stood, walking past her toward the bedroom. He paused at the doorway, looking back with a mixture of amusement and something darker, contempt. You're nothing without me, Olivia. The sooner you accept that, the happier you'll be. Olivia stood alone in the dim light of the living room, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. Her breathing was steady, her mind crystalline clear. She walked to the marble counter in the kitchen, where her keys and phone lay. Slowly, deliberately, she removed her wedding ring and placed it beside the keys. The metal clinked against the marble, a small sound that felt enormous in the silent house. She picked up her phone and her purse and walked toward the front door. Her heels echoed across the foyer, each step measured and purposeful. She didn't look back. From the upstairs balcony, Ethan watched her car's taillights disappear down the long driveway. He smirked, taking another sip of whiskey. She'd be back by morning, he thought. They always came back. What Ethan didn't know, what he'd never bothered to learn, was that buried in the original incorporation documents of Harper Holdings, documents he'd signed without reading carefully, Olivia owned 51% of the intellectual property rights to their core business model and 3 of their most profitable product lines. She'd made sure of that in the beginning, when they were partners in every sense of the word. Before he'd forgotten what partnership meant. The apartment Olivia rented was a stark contrast to the mansion she'd left behind. Located in a revitalized downtown neighborhood, it was a modest one-bedroom with exposed brick and large windows that let in morning light. The space was empty except for few pieces of furniture she'd ordered online and a large whiteboard she'd mounted on the living room wall. At the top of the whiteboard, she wrote in bold letters, Day 1. Rachel arrived an hour later with coffee and bagels, taking in the sparse surroundings with a mixture of concern and admiration. You really did it, Rachel said, setting the food on the kitchen counter. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I, Olivia admitted. But staying was no longer an option. Have you heard from him? 17 calls. 23 texts. I blocked his number an hour ago. Olivia took a sip of coffee, welcoming its warmth. He thinks I'm being dramatic. That I'll come crawling back once reality sets in. Rachel studied her friend's face. There was a hardness there now, a determination that hadn't existed before. What's the plan? Olivia turned to the whiteboard, uncapping a marker. I need to show you something first. She pulled out her laptop and opened a series of files, then began walking Rachel through the history of Harper Holdings, the real history, not the mythology Ethan had constructed. The flashbacks came in fragments, memories Olivia narrated as she showed Rachel the evidence. 7 years ago, she and Ethan had been equals, 2 ambitious professionals with complementary skills. Olivia had the strategic mind, the ability to see market opportunities others missed. Ethan had the charisma, the salesmanship, the ability to convince investors to take a chance. She designed the original business model for Harper Holdings, working late into the night in their tiny apartment. She'd pitched to their first investors, crafting presentations that told a compelling story about the future of their industry. When they'd secured their seed funding, she developed the brand identity, the company culture, the strategic roadmap for the first 5 years. But as success grew, so did Ethan's ego. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped introducing her as his partner and started calling her his wife. He'd stopped inviting her to board meetings. He'd begun taking sole credit for decisions they'd made together, then eventually for decisions she'd made alone. I became invisible, Olivia said, her voice steady but laced with anger. And I let it happen because I thought partnership meant supporting him, even when that support meant erasing myself. Rachel was silent for a long moment, processing everything she'd seen. This is huge, Liv. This proves you built Harper Holdings as much as he did. More, actually. It proves something else, too, Olivia said, clicking through to another set of files. 3 years ago, when we were expanding rapidly, Ethan needed capital fast. He wanted to take out massive loans, but I convinced him to retain intellectual property rights instead of selling them outright to investors. I structured the IP holdings in a separate entity, one that I own 51% of. Rachel's eyes widened. Does he know? He signed the papers, but I doubt he read them. Ethan doesn't sweat the details. That's always been my job. Olivia's smile was thin. Those IP holdings cover our 3 most profitable product lines and the proprietary technology that runs our logistics platform. Without those, Harper Holdings is just an expensive office building and a fancy name. This is your leverage. This is my foundation, Olivia corrected. I'm not interested in destroying what I built. I'm interested in building something better. The next day, Rachel introduced Olivia to Marcus Trent at a quiet bistro near the financial district. Marcus was in his early 50s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with a reputation for backing unconventional ventures that traditional investors overlooked. Rachel tells me you're starting something new, Marcus said, getting straight to business. I am, Olivia replied. But I want to be clear, this isn't about revenge. It's about building a company that operates the way Harper Holdings should have from the beginning. Ethically, you mean? Sustainably. Fairly. With respect for everyone involved, from the suppliers to the employees to the customers. Olivia pulled out a tablet and opened her preliminary business plan. I'm calling it Linera Group. The focus is on ethical supply chain management and sustainable business practices. Marcus studied the plan, his expression thoughtful. After several minutes, he looked up. You built one empire. Why should I believe you can build another? Because this time, I won't be building it for someone else, Olivia said. And because I learned from my mistakes. Harper Holdings succeeded despite its flaws. Linera will succeed because of its strengths. Marcus smiled. I like you. You're angry, but you're smart about it. That's rare. He closed the tablet and slid it back across the table. I'll provide seed funding. But I want quarterly reviews, and I want you to bring on a financial advisor. Rachel, obviously. Obviously, Rachel agreed with a grin. One more thing, Marcus added. I'm doing this because I believe in second chances. But more than that, I believe in people who refuse to stay down. Show me I'm right. The first move Olivia made was subtle but strategic. She began reaching out to the network of suppliers and contractors who'd worked with Harper Holdings over the years, particularly those who'd been squeezed or sidelined as Ethan's company grew more aggressive in its negotiations. She approached them not with Harper Holdings' confrontational tactics, but with genuine partnership offers. Better terms. Fairer contracts. Flexible payment schedules. Most importantly, respect. Within 3 weeks, she'd secured partnerships with 6 key suppliers. The contracts were signed under Linera Group's name, which meant nothing to the market yet. But to these suppliers, it meant working with someone who saw them as partners rather than commodities. She kept everything quiet, operating through an anonymous business entity that revealed nothing about her identity or connection to Harper Holdings. Meanwhile, Ethan was riding high on his own arrogance. At Harper Holdings' monthly leadership meeting, he waved off concerns about the supplier contracts that had mysteriously fallen through. It's a competitive market, he told his team dismissively. We'll find new suppliers. We always do. His COO, a sharp woman named Jennifer, pressed the issue. Ethan, we've lost 3 major logistics partners in 2 weeks. That's not normal market fluctuation. Someone's offering them better deals. Then we offer better deals, Ethan snapped. Problem solved. It's not just about money, Jennifer said carefully. I've spoken with a few of them. They're talking about business philosophy, ethical practices, long-term partnerships. Someone's selling them a vision, not just a contract. Ethan laughed. Since when do suppliers care about vision? They care about money. Match the offers or find new partners. Next item. But privately, a seed of concern had been planted. That evening, he tried calling Olivia again. The call went straight to voicemail, not blocked, just ignored. Olivia was discovering something she'd forgotten during her years with Ethan. She was good at this. Better than good. Without the constant undermining, without the need to make herself smaller to accommodate his ego, her natural talent flourished. She spent her evenings in her apartment, surrounded by whiteboards covered in strategy maps and market analyses. She spent her days in coffee shops and co-working spaces, taking meetings with potential partners and allies. She was building something from nothing, and for the first time in years, she felt fully alive. One afternoon, she drove out to a neighborhood she hadn't visited in years. The house was modest, with a well-tended garden and a wheelchair ramp leading to the front door. Her father answered after the second knock. "Olivia," he said, surprise and pleasure mixing in his weathered face. "I didn't know you were coming." "I should have called," she admitted. "Can we talk?" They sat on the back porch, looking out at the garden her father had built over decades. He'd been a small business owner himself before a stroke had forced him to retire. He'd never approved of Ethan, though he'd been too polite to say so directly. "I left him," Olivia said. Her father nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting this news for years. "Good. You're not surprised?" "I've been waiting for you to remember who you are," he said. "That man made you forget. But you're remembering now, aren't you?" Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm trying to build something new. Something better. But I'm scared, Dad. What if I fail?" Her father reached over and took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "You remember what I told you when you started your first business in college? That little tutoring service? You said I couldn't win by being angry." "I said you can't win by only being angry," he corrected. "Anger is fuel, but strategy is the engine. You were always the smartest person in any room, Olivia. You just forgot to believe it." He squeezed her hand. "Win by being smart. The rest will follow." Those words stayed with her as she returned to the city and dove deeper into building Linera Group. A week later, something unexpected happened. One of Harper Holdings' junior PR associates accidentally leaked an internal memo to the wrong distribution list. The memo was routine, a summary of the company's historical achievements, but buried in the appendix was a footnote crediting Olivia Harper, co-founder and chief strategy officer for the development of several major initiatives. The memo was from 4 years ago, back when Ethan still occasionally acknowledged her contributions. The PR associate had found it in the archives while preparing anniversary materials. Within hours, screenshots of the memo began circulating on LinkedIn and Twitter. Business journalists picked it up, asking questions. Who is Olivia Harper? Why wasn't she listed on current leadership pages? What had happened to the woman who'd apparently co-founded one of the region's most successful companies? Ethan's PR team scrambled to contain the situation, issuing a bland statement about Olivia having stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on personal interests. But the questions persisted, and with them, a growing narrative about the invisible women behind successful men. Olivia watched the social media storm from her apartment, feeling a grim satisfaction. She hadn't planned this, but she wasn't going to waste it either. Ethan, however, was livid. He called an emergency meeting with his PR team, his communications director, and his legal counsel. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "It was an honest mistake," his PR director explained. "The associate was pulling old materials for the anniversary campaign. I don't care if it was honest or dishonest. Fix it. Make it go away." His lawyer, a cautious man named Bernard, cleared his throat. "Ethan, we need to be careful here. If we respond too aggressively, it could backfire. The optics of silencing your ex-wife right now." "She's not my ex-wife. We're separated, not divorced." Semantics aside, the public is sympathetic to her. They're asking legitimate questions about her role in founding the company. Ethan leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. "She had a role. A supporting role. I built Harper Holdings. My vision, my leadership, my risk." Bernard exchanged a glance with the PR director. "That may be your perspective, but the historical documents suggest a more collaborative founding." "Then change the documents," Ethan snapped. "We can't change what's already public record," Bernard said carefully. "And frankly, trying to do so would be worse than letting this blow over naturally." But it didn't blow over. Instead, it gained momentum. Ethan started receiving calls from investors, casual inquiries that carried an undercurrent of concern. One of his board members mentioned over lunch that his wife had asked about Olivia after seeing the memo. She wanted to know if we'd pushed out a talented woman because she wasn't aggressive enough. I told her no, of course, but it got me thinking. That night, alone in the mansion that suddenly felt too large and too empty, Ethan poured himself a drink and stared at the city lights beyond his window. Somewhere out there, Olivia was doing something. He didn't know what, but he could feel her presence like a shadow at the edge of his empire. He tried her number one more time. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. Olivia, we need to talk. This is getting ridiculous. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Call me back. The phone buzzed immediately, a text message from an unknown number. Check your trademark applications. Ethan's blood ran cold. He opened his laptop and logged into the patent and trademark database, running a search for any recent applications related to Harper Holdings' key technologies. 3 applications appeared, all filed within the past month. All filed under Linera Group LLC. All covering technologies and methodologies that Harper Holdings had been using for years, technologies Olivia had developed. He tried to open the detailed filings, but his access was restricted. These were proprietary applications, visible only to the filing party. Ethan grabbed his phone and called Bernard. We have a problem. The lawsuit arrived via courier on a Tuesday morning, delivered to Harper Holdings' legal department in a nondescript manila envelope. By noon, it had reached Ethan's desk. By 1 p.m., it had been leaked to the press. Linera Group LLC, Harper Holdings, intellectual property theft. The filing was meticulous, brutal in its precision. It alleged that Harper Holdings had continued using proprietary methodologies, software protocols, and strategic frameworks that were legally owned by Linera Group, technologies that predated the company itself, because they'd been developed by Olivia Harper during the founding of Harper Holdings. The legal argument was elegant. Olivia had never transferred her IP rights to these methodologies. She'd licensed them to Harper Holdings through the separate entity she controlled. That license could be revoked at any time, and she was now revoking it. The business press went wild. Within hours, headlines blazed across news sites and trade publications. Harper Holdings accused of IP theft by mysterious new company. Former co-founder returns to haunt corporate giant. The woman behind Harper Holdings strikes back. Ethan's office descended into chaos. His phone rang constantly, board members, investors, business partners, all demanding explanations. His PR team assembled for crisis management. His legal team dug through archives, trying to verify the claims. Jennifer, his COO, was the one who delivered the worst news. It's true, she said, standing in his office with a stack of documents. I've been through the original incorporation papers, the IP agreements, the licensing contracts. Olivia retained ownership of the core strategic framework and 3 major technology platforms. We've been operating under a license that she apparently can terminate with 90 days' notice. Ethan stared at her, his face pale. That's impossible. I signed those agreements. I would have known. Did you read them? The question hung in the air, unanswered. She structured everything carefully, Jennifer continued. It's all legal, all documented. And here's the thing, she's not asking for money. She's asking us to cease and desist using her IP immediately. That would cripple us. I know. Ethan swept the papers off his desk in a violent motion. Find me who's behind Linera. I want names, addresses, bank accounts. Someone's helping her. She couldn't do this alone. His assistant, a nervous young man named Kyle, spoke up from the doorway. Sir, the corporate filings are public record. Linera Group's founder and CEO is listed as Olivia Harper. The room fell silent. What? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. Kyle pulled up the filing on his tablet and showed it to Ethan. There it was in black and white. Founder and CEO Olivia M. Harper. Ethan grabbed his keys. I'm going out. Ethan, we have the board meeting in an hour. Jennifer called after him, but he was already gone. The emergency board meeting that afternoon was tense. The members had read the lawsuit, seen the media coverage, and done their own research. Questions came fast and hard. How did we not know about this IP situation? What's our legal position? Who approved our use of these technologies without verifying ownership? Ethan tried to maintain control, painting Olivia as a bitter ex-wife seeking revenge, but his arguments rang hollow. Several board members had been part of the company long enough to remember Olivia's role in the early days. David Patterson, the senior board member who'd complimented Olivia at the dinner party, spoke with measured authority. "Gentlemen, ladies, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Olivia Harper wasn't just your wife, Ethan. She was our partner. She was involved in strategic planning, investor relations, product development. I remember because I was there." "She was my wife," Ethan insisted. "She helped, yes, but..." "She co-founded this company," Patterson interrupted. "And we gradually wrote her out of the story because it was easier, more convenient, more traditional. We all participated in that. Now we're paying the price." The meeting ended with no clear resolution, only a directive for the legal team to assess their position and attempt to negotiate with Linera Group. While Ethan's world was crumbling, Olivia's was expanding. Linera Group's website went live the same day the lawsuit became public. It was sleek, professional, and built around a philosophy that stood in stark contrast to Harper Holdings' aggressive capitalism. "We believe in building businesses that serve all stakeholders, not just shareholders. We believe in sustainable growth, ethical partnerships, and empowering the next generation of leaders." The site featured case studies from the suppliers Olivia had partnered with, highlighting how Linera's approach had helped them grow while maintaining their values. It showcased the technology platforms she developed, now properly credited to her, and announced several new initiatives in sustainable supply chain management. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 48 hours, Olivia received inquiries from dozens of companies interested in partnerships. Major business publications requested interviews. LinkedIn announced she was one of the most viewed profiles in the business category. But the moment that truly shifted the narrative came from an unexpected source. Daniel Chun, Harper Holdings CFO and a man who'd worked closely with Olivia in the early years, reached out through a discreet intermediary. They met at a hotel bar far from the financial district, where the chances of being recognized were minimal. "I've seen what you're building," Daniel said without preamble. "And I've seen what Ethan's become." "Why are you here, Daniel?" He pulled out a flash drive and slid it across the table. "Because I'd rather work for someone who builds people up than someone who tears them down. This contains 3 years of financial data, strategic documents, and internal communications that might be useful to you." Olivia stared at the flash drive but didn't touch it. "This is corporate espionage. This is documentation of decisions I was part of. I'm listed on most of these documents. They're as much mine as they are his." Daniel met her eyes. "Ethan's been cooking the books, Olivia. Not dramatically, but enough. Inflating projections, hiding risks, pushing debt off into subsidiaries. The board doesn't see it because they don't want to, but it's there." "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of being complicit. And because I think what you're doing actually matters." He stood. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm not even saying I'll jump ship right now. But I wanted you to know that not everyone at Harper Holdings is drinking the Kool-Aid." After he left, Olivia sat alone with the flash drive for a long time, weighing her options. Rachel would tell her to be strategic, to use the information carefully. Her lawyer would advise extreme caution. But Olivia knew something they didn't. She didn't need to destroy Ethan to win. She just needed to be better than him. That evening, she attended a Women in Business Summit where she'd been invited as a last-minute panelist. The moderator introduced her as the founder of Linera Group and former partner in Harper Holdings, which drew interested murmurs from the crowd of several hundred attendees. During the Q&A, someone asked, "How do you compete with a company that has so much more resources and name recognition?" Olivia smiled. "You don't compete on their terms. You change the terms of competition. Harper Holdings wins by being aggressive, by dominating suppliers, by squeezing every dollar out of every relationship. Linera wins by being fair, sustainable, and genuinely collaborative. We're not playing the same game." The response was electric. The clip of her answer went viral within hours, shared across social media, with commentary praising her approach. Business schools began using the quote in lectures about competitive strategy. Ethan saw the video on his phone while sitting alone in his office late that night. He watched it 3 times, studying her face, the confidence in her voice, the way the audience responded to her. When had she become this person? Or had she always been this person, and he'd simply refused to see it? His father's call came just before midnight. "We need to talk," Charles Harper said. His voice carried the weight of decades in business, along with a disappointment Ethan hadn't heard since childhood. "Come to the house tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Don't be late." The Harper family estate was where Charles had raised Ethan, where the old man still lived in partial retirement while maintaining his role as chairman of Harper Holdings Board. Ethan arrived to find his father in the study, newspapers and printouts spread across the desk. Every article about the lawsuit, about Olivia, about Linera Group. "Sit," Charles commanded. Ethan sat. "You've lost control, son. This is just a temporary setback. We'll settle with Olivia, restructure." "You've lost control," Charles repeated, harder this time. "Of the company, of the narrative, and apparently of your marriage. Do you know how many board members have called me in the past 3 days? How many investors are asking about succession planning? I built that company." "You and Olivia built that company," Charles interrupted. "I remember because I was one of your first investors. I read those original business plans, the ones she wrote. I sat in on those early strategy sessions where she was doing most of the talking while you were schmoozing investors." He leaned forward. "You had talent, Ethan. Real talent. But you let your ego consume everything else. So what now? You're taking her side?" "I'm taking the company's side. The board is meeting next week to discuss leadership changes. They're talking about bringing Olivia back." Ethan felt the floor shift beneath him. "Back? To what?" "She left. She left you. She never officially resigned from the company. And technically, given her IP holdings and original partnership stake, she has more claim to leadership than you might like to admit." "This is insane." Charles stood, moving to the window that overlooked the grounds. "I'm going to tell you something I should have said years ago. Your mother was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But she let me take all the credit because that's how things were done in her generation. She died wondering what she could have built if she'd had the courage to claim what was hers." He turned to face Ethan. "Don't make Olivia's story the same as your mother's. And don't make yourself the villain in it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the board wants her back. They want stability, they want good PR, and frankly, they want the person who actually knows how the company works." Charles returned to his desk, his voice softening slightly. "You have a choice, son. You can fight this and lose everything, or you can figure out how to make this work. Maybe even apologize." "Apologize?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "She's the one suing us. She's the one you pushed out." Charles picked up his reading glasses. 9 a.m. board meeting, Thursday. Be prepared." Ethan left his father's house feeling untethered, like the ground rules of his entire life had suddenly changed. He drove aimlessly for an hour before finding himself parked outside Olivia's downtown apartment building. He sat in the car for 20 minutes, rehearsing what he'd say. Finally, he went inside. The receptionist at the desk, Linera Group, had rented small office space on the ground floor, looked up with professional courtesy that cooled when she recognized him. "I need to see Olivia," Ethan said. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her husband. Ms. Harper's schedule is fully booked today. If you'd like to make an appointment, just tell her I'm here. Please." The receptionist made a brief call, speaking quietly. After a moment, she hung up and looked at Ethan with something approaching pity. "Ms. Harper isn't accepting visitors today. If you'd like to leave a message." "No message," Ethan said, his voice hollow. "No message." He returned to his car and sat there as the sky darkened, watching lights come on in the building's windows, wondering which one was hers. The invitation arrived in Harper Holdings' executive inbox with carefully calculated timing. Olivia Harper had been selected as a keynote speaker for the annual Women in Business Leadership Summit. The event was in 3 weeks, and it was sponsored by several major corporations, including Harper Holdings, who had committed to the sponsorship 6 months earlier. Ethan's PR team brought him the news, with visible anxiety. "Can we pull the sponsorship?" Ethan asked immediately. "Not without significant penalties and worse PR," his communications director explained. "We signed a contract. Backing out now would look like we're trying to silence her." "We are trying to silence her." "Sir, I strongly advise against that approach. The optics." "I don't care about optics." Ethan slammed his hand on the desk. "Call the organizers.
Tell them we need to vet speakers."
Tell them anything." But the organizers were unmoved. "Ms. Harper is one of the most requested speakers we've had in years," they told his team. "Her story resonates. If Harper Holdings has a problem with that, perhaps you need to examine why." The story leaked within days. Major sponsor attempts to cancel female entrepreneurs' speech. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Feminist business groups rallied around Olivia. Social media exploded with criticism of Harper Holdings. 3 other sponsors publicly announced they were proud to support diverse voices, in an obvious dig at Ethan's company. Ethan was forced to release a statement claiming there had been a miscommunication and that Harper Holdings fully supported Ms. Harper's participation in the summit. The damage was done. The narrative was set. Powerful man tries to silence ex-wife's success. In the weeks leading up to the summit, Olivia refined her approach. She met with speechwriters, practiced her delivery, and worked with Rachel to ensure every word would land with precision. This wasn't just a speech. It was the moment she'd reclaim her story in public. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Daniel continued feeding her information. The flash drive he'd given her contained evidence of what he described: inflated projections, hidden liabilities, questionable accounting practices. Nothing dramatic enough to bring criminal charges, but enough to seriously concern regulators and investors. Olivia didn't use it. Not yet. She kept it locked away, insurance if she needed it, but hoping she wouldn't. "You're being too nice," Rachel told her over dinner one evening. "He tried to erase you. Now you have the ammunition to destroy him." "Destroying him doesn't build anything," Olivia replied. "It just makes me like him." "So, what's the endgame?" Olivia smiled. "I win by being better, not by making him worse." The night before the summit, Olivia received an unexpected call from Jennifer, Ethan's COO. "I'm not supposed to be calling you," Jennifer said. "But I thought you should know, the board is meeting tomorrow morning. Before your speech. They're discussing leadership changes." "What kind of changes?" "The kind that involve you." Jennifer paused. "Ethan doesn't know yet. His father is leading the charge. Patterson and 3 other senior members are backing it. They want to bring you back as co-CEO, possibly transitioning to sole CEO within 6 months." Olivia's hand tightened on her phone. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've worked under Ethan for 4 years, and I've watched the company struggle despite our success. We're profitable, yes, but we're hemorrhaging talent, burning through supplier relationships, and our reputation is suffering. You built something in 3 months that we haven't been able to build in years. Genuine respect." Jennifer's voice softened. "And because I'm a woman in a leadership position, largely because you fought for that policy in the early days. I haven't forgotten." After Jennifer hung up, Olivia sat in her apartment, processing the information. The board wanted her back. They were going to offer her the company she'd built, the company Ethan had claimed as his own. She should feel triumphant. Instead, she felt the weight of the decision ahead. Rachel found her there an hour later, staring out the window at the city lights. "You okay?" Rachel asked. "They're going to offer me Harper Holdings." "That's amazing." "That's exactly." Rachel stopped, reading her friend's expression. "You're not sure you want it." "I built Llanera for a reason," Olivia said slowly. "It's clean. It's mine. It operates by principles I believe in. Harper Holdings it's tainted. It's built on Ethan's choices, his culture, his mess. So clean it up." "You'd have the power to do that." "Would I? Or would I spend years trying to undo damage while fighting people who are loyal to Ethan, to his way of doing things?" Olivia shook her head. "I don't know if that's the empire I want." Then don't decide tonight, Rachel said. Give the speech tomorrow. See what happens. Trust yourself. The summit was held at the city's premier convention center, a gleaming structure of glass and steel. Over 2,000 attendees filled the main hall, executives, entrepreneurs, students, journalists. The energy was electric. Olivia stood backstage in a navy dress that was both professional and powerful, her hair pulled back in a simple style that meant business. She could hear the crowd murmuring, see camera crews setting up, feel the weight of the moment. The MC introduced her. Please welcome Olivia Harper, founder and CEO of Lynera Group, co-founder of Harper Holdings, and one of the most talked-about entrepreneurs of the year. Olivia walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She took her position at the podium, let the applause fade, and looked out at the sea of faces. Thank you, she began, her voice steady and clear. 3 months ago, I was told I was replaceable, that my ideas didn't matter. That business was a man's game, and I was just playing at it. The audience was absolutely silent. My husband said I wouldn't last a week without him. Without his name, his connections, his reputation. He laughed when I suggested I could build something on my own. She paused, letting the words land. He was wrong. The crowd erupted in applause. Olivia waited for silence. But here's the thing, this isn't a revenge story. I didn't build Lynera Group to hurt him or to prove him wrong. I built it because I finally remembered something I'd forgotten. I don't need permission to be exceptional. None of us do. She told her story then, but not with bitterness. She spoke about partnership, about the gradual erosion of identity, about the moment she realized she'd been complicit in her own diminishment. She talked about the fear of starting over, the terror of leaving security for uncertainty. They told me I was replaceable, she said, her voice rising with passion. Turns out, I was the replacement all along. I was the strategy. I was the vision. I was the foundation. They just forgot to mention it on the website. The audience laughed, but it was laughter mixed with recognition, with understanding. So here's what I learned, Olivia continued. Power isn't something someone gives you. It's something you claim. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you command. And success isn't about destroying those who doubted you. It's about building something so undeniable that their doubts become irrelevant. The applause was deafening. People rose to their feet. The cameras caught every moment, and within minutes, clips were spreading across social media. In a private box overlooking the hall, Charles Harper sat with 2 other board members, watching intently. That, Patterson said quietly, is leadership. The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes. When Olivia finally left the stage, she felt lighter than she had in years, as if something heavy she'd been carrying had finally been set down. Backstage, her phone exploded with messages. Media requests, partnership offers, speaking invitations, and one text from an unknown number. That was extraordinary. The board wants to meet with you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Charles Harper. But the moment that truly mattered came an hour later, when the event had ended and Olivia was preparing to leave. A young woman, probably in her mid-20s, approached nervously. Ms. Harper? I'm sorry to bother you, but I needed to tell you something. The young woman's eyes were bright with tears. I've been working at a company where my boss takes credit for all my ideas. I've been too scared to leave, too scared to speak up. But listening to you today, I realized I don't need his permission to be who I am. I'm turning in my resignation tomorrow. Olivia took the woman's hands. What's your name? Jessica. Jessica, listen to me. When you leave, leave well. Be professional, be graceful, but be firm. And then build something so beautiful that when they look back, they'll realize what they lost. Olivia smiled. And if you need a reference or an introduction, you know where to find me. Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face, and walked away transformed. That evening, Olivia met with her core team, Rachel, Marcus, and 2 other advisors, in Lynera's small office. Charles Harper wants to meet tomorrow, Olivia told them. They're going to offer me Harper Holdings. Marcus leaned back in his chair. What do you want to do? I want to hear what they have to say, Olivia replied. But I'm not sure I want what they're offering. Why not? One of the advisors asked. It's everything you fought for. Is it? Olivia looked around at the modest office, at the whiteboard still covered with their early strategies, at the team she'd assembled. I fought to build something that matters. I fought to prove I could lead. I've done both. Harper Holdings it's the past. Linares is the future. You could have both, Rachel suggested. Merge them. Use Harper Holdings resources to scale Linares' vision. Olivia considered this. Maybe, but on my terms. The next morning, Olivia arrived at Harper Holdings headquarters for the first time in months. The building felt both familiar and foreign. She knew every floor, every corner, yet she was entering as an outsider. Charles Harper greeted her personally in the lobby, a gesture not lost on the employees who watched discreetly. He led her to the executive boardroom, where the senior board members waited. Thank you for coming, Charles began once they were seated. I'll be direct. The board has decided that Harper Holdings needs new leadership. After careful consideration, we'd like to offer you the position of CEO. Olivia listened as they outlined the terms. Full operational control. Ethan would remain as a board member, but with significantly reduced power, restructuring authority, and a compensation package that reflected her true value. What about Ethan? Olivia asked. He'll be given a graceful exit. A consultant position if he wants it, but effective leadership of the company would transfer to you. Charles met her eyes. This is what should have been from the beginning. Olivia was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, Where is Ethan now? We haven't told him yet. We wanted your answer first. I need to speak with him. The board members exchanged glances. Olivia, that's not necessary. It is for me, she said firmly. Before I make any decision, I need to speak with him directly. They found Ethan in his office, unaware of the meeting happening floors above him. When Olivia entered, escorted by his father, his face went through a series of emotions: surprise, hope, confusion, then understanding. They're giving you the company, he said flatly. They're offering it, Olivia corrected. I haven't accepted. Why not? This is what you wanted. Olivia sat down across from him, studying the man she'd once loved, once partnered with, once believed in. Is it? I'm not sure anymore. For the first time since she'd known him, Ethan looked truly vulnerable. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know it's too late, I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. You were right. About all of it. What changed? Watching you build Linares. Watching you succeed without me. He laughed bitterly. I told myself you couldn't do it. That you needed me. But the truth is, I needed you. I always did. I was just too insecure to admit it. Olivia felt something shift. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a release of the anger she'd been carrying. Thank you for saying that. Are you going to take it? The company? I don't know yet. She stood. But if I do, it won't be your company anymore. It'll be something new. She left Ethan sitting in his office and returned to the boardroom, where Charles and the others waited anxiously. I'll accept on 3 conditions, Olivia said. First, we merge Harper Holdings with Linares Group under a new name and new mission statement, one that reflects the values Linares was built on. Charles nodded. Agreed. Second, we implement a complete restructuring. New executive team, new policies, new culture. Everyone reapplies for their position, including Ethan. No one gets a free pass based on history. Done. Third, Olivia paused. I want a seat on the board for someone from outside our industry. Someone who represents the communities we serve, not just the shareholders we answer to. This caused murmurs among the board members, but Charles silenced them with a gesture. We'll make it happen. Olivia extended her hand. Then we have a deal. The news broke that afternoon. Olivia Harper had been appointed CEO of Harper Holdings with a mandate to restructure and reimagine the company from the ground up. The announcement included details of the merger with Linares Group and the new mission statement Olivia had drafted. The media went wild. Social media exploded. Business analysts called it the corporate redemption story of the decade. But for Olivia, sitting in the corner office that had once been Ethan's, looking out at the city that had witnessed her fall and rise. It wasn't about redemption. It was about reclamation. She'd walked away with nothing but her dignity and her intelligence. She'd built an empire from scratch. And now she'd returned to the empire she'd originally built, not as a wife, not as a footnote, but as the architect she'd always been. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, "Congratulations. You deserve this. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see what I had." She read it, then set the phone down without responding. Some things didn't need a reply. Instead, she opened her laptop and began drafting the memo that would go out to all Harper Holdings employees Monday morning. It began. "Change is never easy, but it's always necessary. Together, we're going to build something that matters, not just a profitable company, but a force for good. This is day one of that journey. Who's with me?" She saved the draft and looked out at the setting sun, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Olivia Harper had laughed when told she could be replaced. Turned out, she was the only one who couldn't be. The first morning as CEO, Olivia arrived at Harper Holdings before sunrise. The building was quiet, save for the security guard who nodded respectfully as she passed. She took the elevator to the executive floor, walking past offices that had belonged to Ethan's chosen inner circle. Everything would change, but change required patience. By 8 a.m., employees began trickling in. Word had spread over the weekend. Olivia Harper was now their leader. Some greeted her warmly, relief evident on their faces. Others avoided eye contact, uncertain where their loyalties should lie. A few watched with barely concealed hostility, remnants of Ethan's old guard. Her first executive meeting was scheduled for 9. The conference room filled with department heads, most of whom she recognized from her early days at the company. They sat stiffly, waiting. "Good morning," Olivia began, standing at the head of the table. "I know this transition is unexpected for many of you. Some of you are wondering if your jobs are safe. Others are wondering what my leadership will look like. So let me be clear." She pulled up a presentation on the screen behind her. "Harper Holdings has been profitable, yes. But we've achieved that success by cutting corners, squeezing suppliers, burning through employees, prioritizing short-term gains over long-term sustainability. That ends today." The room was silent. "Over the next 6 months, we'll be implementing new policies, fair supplier contracts, employee equity programs, transparent accounting, and ethical business practices. Every department will be evaluated not just on profit, but on how you achieve that profit. Anyone who can't adapt to this new direction is welcome to leave with a generous severance package." One of the senior VPs, a man named Richard who'd been Ethan's golf buddy, spoke up. "With all due respect, Ms. Harper, this sounds like bleeding heart idealism. Our shareholders care about returns, not feelings." "Our shareholders care about sustainable growth," Olivia corrected. "And they're smart enough to know that companies built on exploitation eventually collapse. We're getting ahead of that curve." She looked directly at Richard. "But you're right to question this approach. Which is why I'm giving everyone here 2 weeks to decide if they want to be part of this new vision. No judgment either way." After the meeting, Jennifer approached her privately. "That was bold." "It was necessary," Olivia replied. "I can't rebuild the culture if I'm working with people who are actively undermining it. Richard will fight you. So will about half the executive team. I know, but the other half will thrive. And we'll hire better people to fill the gaps." Olivia gathered her materials. "Change is messy, Jennifer. But staying the same would be worse." The real challenge came from an unexpected direction. Walking through the main office floor, Olivia noticed Ethan's portrait still hanging prominently in the hall of leadership photos. Employees passed it throughout the day, a constant reminder of the old regime. She stopped, studying the image. Ethan looked confident, powerful, untouchable. "Take it down," she told her assistant quietly. "Miss Harper, the board traditionally approves any changes to." "I'm not asking the board. I'm the CEO. Take it down." By noon, the portrait was gone. The empty space on the walls spoke volumes. Some employees smiled in relief. Others whispered nervously. Olivia had drawn her line in the sand. The media frenzy that followed her appointment was relentless. Every business publication wanted interviews, features, commentary. The narrative had crystallized. Woman dethroned by husband stages epic comeback. Olivia granted selective interviews, always steering the conversation away from revenge and toward vision. "This isn't about what he did to me," she told Forbes. "It's about what we're building together, a company that proves profit and principles aren't mutually exclusive." But not everyone was convinced. Online comment sections filled with skeptics. "She's just bitter. Give it 6 months, and she'll crash the company. She only got the job because of the scandal." Rachel showed her some of the comments one evening over dinner. "You can't read this stuff. It'll drive you crazy." "I need to see it," Olivia said, scrolling through the vitriol. "Because for every person who doubts me, there's someone watching to see if I prove them wrong. That's motivating." The real threat emerged in week 3. Olivia discovered encrypted files on the company's server. Someone had been transferring funds to offshore accounts, and the digital signature pointed to her. She called an emergency meeting with her financial team and IT security. "Someone's setting me up," she said bluntly, showing them the evidence. "These transfers started the day after I became CEO. The signature is spoofed, but convincingly." Her head of IT, a sharp woman named Maya, examined the code. "This is sophisticated. Whoever did this had inside knowledge of our security protocols. Can you trace it? Give me 48 hours." Meanwhile, the transfers continued. Small amounts, carefully hidden in the normal flow of business transactions. But Olivia knew that when, not if, this was discovered, it would look like she was embezzling. The perfect takedown. The anonymous message arrived on her personal phone that night. "You took everything from me. Now I'll take your name." Olivia stared at the message. Her first instinct was Ethan, but something didn't fit. He'd been defeated, apologetic even. This felt different, more calculated, more vengeful. She forwarded the message to Maya and increased security protocols across the company. 2 days later, Maya delivered her findings. The transfers were initiated from CFO Daniel Chen's terminal. But here's the interesting part. The access codes used were from 6 months ago, before the security update. Someone with old credentials. Olivia's blood ran cold. Daniel, who'd given her the flash drive. Daniel, who'd seemed like an ally. Daniel, who'd had access to everything. She called him to her office immediately. Daniel arrived looking nervous, which told Olivia everything she needed to know before he even spoke. "You've been reviewing the offshore accounts," he said, not a question. "Why?" Olivia asked simply. Daniel sat down heavily. "Because you changed the rules too fast. Because the old system worked, and you're dismantling it. Because some of us liked knowing how the game was played. So, you tried to frame me for embezzlement? I tried to show you that you can't just come in and overturn everything without consequences." He met her eyes. "You think you're building something better, but you're destroying jobs, alienating partners, making enemies of people who could have been allies." "I'm building something sustainable," Olivia said coldly. "And you're going to jail. You don't have proof. My lawyer will argue the credentials were stolen, that someone else used them. It'll tie you up in legal battles for years, and the scandal will destroy everything you've built." Daniel leaned forward. "Or you can let me resign quietly. No scandal, no investigation, no mess." Olivia studied him for a long moment. Every instinct screamed to prosecute, to make an example of him. But Rachel's voice echoed in her mind. "Pick your battles. Win the war, not just the fight." "You have until end of business today to submit your resignation," Olivia said finally. "Effective immediately. You'll sign an NDA, forfeit your stock options, and if I ever hear you've spoken about this company publicly, I'll release everything, not just the embezzlement evidence, but every shady deal you participated in under Ethan's leadership." Daniel's face went pale. "That's blackmail. That's business. The same game you wanted to play." She stood. "Security will escort you out." As Daniel was led away, Olivia felt a strange mixture of victory and exhaustion. She'd won this battle, but at what cost? The constant fighting, the endless threats, the need to stay vigilant against attacks from within, This wasn't the empire she dreamed of building. That evening, alone in her apartment, Olivia stood before the whiteboard from Act 2, the one that said Day 1. She picked up a marker and crossed it out, writing below it, Day 1 again. Rachel found her there an hour later, Chinese food in hand. I brought sustenance. I'm not hungry. You need to eat anyway. Rachel set out the containers. I heard about Daniel. Word travels fast. It always does.
Jennifer called me.
She said you handled it perfectly. Rachel handed her chopsticks. So, why do you look miserable? Olivia sank onto the couch. Because it never ends, Rachel. I thought once I got the company back, once I proved myself, it would be, I don't know, easier? But every day there's a new threat, a new betrayal, a new battle. I'm starting to wonder if this is worth it. Is that Olivia Harper talking, or the exhaustion? Both. Olivia picked at the noodles. I built Lanera in 3 months, and it was hard, but it was joyful. This, running Harper Holdings, feels like swimming through mud. Because Harper Holdings is broken, Rachel said gently. You're trying to fix something that's been damaged for years. That takes time. What if I can't fix it? What if Ethan poisoned it too deeply? Rachel set down her food and took Olivia's hand. Then you burn it down and start over. But you don't quit. That's not who you are. The words settled something in Olivia. Rachel was right. She'd faced worse and survived. This was just another test. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Harper Holdings under investigation for financial irregularities. CEO Olivia Harper's signature on suspect documents. The story had broken. Despite her handling of Daniel, despite her precautions, someone had leaked the offshore account information. And the headlines painted her as the criminal. Olivia felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd rebuilt, her reputation, her company, her future, was crumbling again. They're not going to let me win, she whispered. Rachel pulled up the news story, reading quickly. This is Daniel's revenge. He leaked it before the NDA took effect. It doesn't matter. The damage is done. But even as she said it, Olivia's mind was working. She'd spent months learning to think strategically, to turn obstacles into opportunities. This wasn't defeat. This was another move in a longer game. She stood, pulling out her laptop. Get me Maya from IT and our PR team. Emergency meeting, 1 hour. What are you thinking? Olivia's expression hardened with determination. They want a scandal? I'll give them the whole truth. Every bit of it. By morning, the media storm had intensified. News vans surrounded Harper Holdings headquarters. Reporters shouted questions at every employee entering the building. The board called an emergency meeting for 9 a.m. Olivia arrived early, prepared for the worst. The boardroom was already full. Charles Harper, Patterson, and the other senior members sat grim-faced, documents spread before them. Olivia, this is serious, Patterson began without preamble. We've been contacted by the SEC. They're launching an investigation into the offshore accounts. Your signature was forged, Olivia interrupted. I have proof. Daniel Chin initiated those transfers using old access codes. My IT team has traced every transaction. She pulled up the evidence on the screen, walking them through Maya's findings. The board members examined the technical data, their expressions shifting from concern to confusion. If you have this proof, why didn't you come to us immediately? Charles asked. Because I was handling it internally. Daniel resigned yesterday. I thought that would be the end of it, but he leaked the story first. You should have involved us, one of the other board members said sharply. Now it looks like you're covering something up. Or, it looks like I solved the problem efficiently, Olivia countered. Which would you prefer, a CEO who runs to the board every time there's an issue, or one who handles crises before they escalate? The room fell silent. Finally, Charles spoke. The optics are terrible, Olivia. Regardless of the truth, we need to suspend you pending the investigation. It's standard protocol. The words hit like a physical blow. You're suspending me? It's temporary. Just until the SEC clears you. And if they don't, if Daniel's lawyer manages to create enough reasonable doubt. Olivia looked around the table. You're abandoning me. Just like you abandoned me the first time. That's not fair, Patterson started. Isn't it? Olivia gathered her materials. I came back to fix what Ethan broke. I'm implementing the changes you asked for. And at the first sign of trouble, you're throwing me to the wolves to protect yourselves. She walked to the door, then paused. For the record, I've done nothing wrong. But I understand, protecting the company means protecting your reputations, even if it means sacrificing mine. The announcement went out at noon. Olivia Harper suspended as CEO pending investigation. The media pounced. Social media exploded with commentary. Corporate queen or criminal mastermind? Trending within hours. Investors began pulling out. Stock prices dropped. Olivia watched it all from her apartment, feeling the foundations of everything she'd rebuilt crumbling beneath her feet. Daniel appeared on the news that evening, looking somber and regretful. I tried to warn Ms. Harper that her aggressive restructuring was damaging the company. When I discovered the financial irregularities, I felt I had no choice but to come forward. It pains me to see someone I once respected fall like this. His performance was perfect, the reluctant whistleblower, the conscientious employee doing his painful duty. The media loved it. Olivia threw a glass at the television, watching it shatter. The sound felt good, cathartic. She threw another. Rachel arrived to find her surrounded by broken glass. Mascara streaked down her face. Get up, Rachel said firmly. What's the point? The point is you're Olivia Harper. The point is you built an empire twice. The point is you don't let men like Daniel and Ethan write your ending. Rachel pulled her up. Now get in the shower, put on something that makes you feel powerful, and let's figure out how to fight back. Olivia looked at her friend through tears. I'm so tired, Rachel.
I know.
But you can rest after you win. 2 hours later, clean and dressed, Olivia sat at her laptop with renewed focus. Rachel was right. Wallowing accomplished nothing.
She needed to fight.
She pulled up the flash drive Daniel had given her months ago. The evidence of Ethan's financial irregularities, the cooked books, the hidden risks. She'd kept it as insurance, but never used it. Now she examined it with fresh eyes. The document showed a pattern. Daniel had been complicit in much of Ethan's creative accounting. He'd helped hide debts, inflate projections, create the illusion of success where reality was shakier. More importantly, the document showed transfers that matched the pattern of the current offshore accounts. Daniel had used this same technique before. This is it, Olivia breathed. This proves he's done this before. Under Ethan's leadership. Rachel looked over her shoulder. This ties Daniel and Ethan together. But using it means exposing everything, not just Daniel but Ethan too. And by extension, the company's entire history. The truth is going to come out anyway during the investigation, Olivia reasoned. Better if I control the narrative. You're sure? Olivia thought of the young woman at the summit, Jessica, who'd been inspired to leave her toxic job. She thought of all the employees who'd trusted her to build something better. She thought of herself, standing in the mansion, ring on the counter, walking away from everything. I'm sure. No more secrets. No more protecting people who don't deserve it. She called Jennifer. I need you to arrange a press conference for tomorrow morning. And I need you to do it without board approval. Olivia, they'll fire you. They've already suspended me. What more can they do? Olivia smiled grimly. Besides, by tomorrow afternoon, they'll be thanking me. The press conference was held in the lobby of Harper Holdings at 8 a.m., before the board could stop her. Dozens of reporters crowded the space, cameras flashing as Olivia took her position at the podium. She looked calm, professional, unshakable. Thank you for coming, she began. I'm here to address the allegations against me and to provide full transparency about the situation at Harper Holdings. She pulled up the first slide, the forged signatures, the technical evidence of Daniel's manipulation. Former CFO Daniel Chen initiated fraudulent transfers using my digital signature. We have conclusive proof of this, which has been provided to the SEC. Mr. Chen resigned when confronted with this evidence, then leaked a false narrative to discredit me. Reporters shouted questions. Olivia held up a hand. But that's not the full story. The full story is that Mr. Chen learned these techniques during his tenure under the previous leadership, techniques that were used to hide financial irregularities and present a false picture of Harper Holdings' stability. She pulled up documents from the flash drive, redacted to protect proprietary information but clear enough to show the pattern. I'm releasing this information not to attack my predecessor, but because transparency is the only way forward. Harper Holdings has operated in shadows for too long. Under my leadership, we will operate in the light. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Cameras flashed like lightning. "One more thing," Olivia said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm calling for a full independent audit of Harper Holdings' finances dating back 5 years. Every transaction, every account, every decision. If we're going to rebuild this company properly, we need to understand exactly what we're rebuilding from." She stepped away from the podium and walked out through the side door, leaving the reporters in stunned silence. Upstairs, the board watched the press conference on the monitors in their conference room. Charles Harper sat back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Well," he said, "that's leadership." Patterson nodded. She just threw herself on a grenade to protect the company's future, even knowing it might destroy her present. Or, another board member said, "She just forced our hand. We can't suspend her now, not after she's called for transparency. We look like we're hiding something." Charles stood. "Then I suggest we unsuspend her immediately and publicly support the audit. Olivia just gave us a chance to clean house properly. Let's not waste it." By noon, Olivia received the call. Her suspension was lifted, the board was supporting her fully, and they wanted her back in the office immediately. She allowed herself one moment of triumph, then got back to work. The independent audit took 6 weeks. During that time, Olivia continued restructuring Harper Holdings, implementing her new policies, and weathering the daily media scrutiny. The process was brutal, every decision questioned, every move analyzed. But slowly, the tide began to turn. The audit results were damning, not for Olivia, but for the old regime. Daniel Chen had been siphoning funds for years, hiding it under the cover of complex financial instruments. Ethan hadn't been directly involved, but he'd created the culture of opacity that allowed it to happen. More importantly, the audit revealed that Daniel's recent attempt to frame Olivia was part of a desperate plan backed by Ethan himself. Surveillance footage from a parking garage showed them meeting weeks before Olivia's appointment as CEO, exchanging documents and money. The evidence was undeniable. The shareholder conference where the audit results would be presented was packed. Investors, media, employees, everyone wanted to see the conclusion of the saga that had gripped the business world for months. Ethan arrived looking confident, having spent weeks rebuilding his public image. He'd granted interviews painting himself as the wronged founder, the man pushed aside by an overly ambitious ex-wife. Some people had bought the narrative. He took his seat in the front row, not knowing what was coming. Olivia stood at the podium to present the audit findings. She saw Ethan in the audience, saw his smug expression, and felt nothing.
No anger, no hate. He was simply irrelevant now.
"Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the independent audit has concluded. I'll let the findings speak for themselves." She pulled up the first slide, a timeline of financial irregularities dating back 4 years. Each transaction highlighted, each questionable decision noted. Then she played the surveillance footage. The conference hall fell absolutely silent as Ethan and Daniel's meeting played on the massive screen. The audio was clear. "Frame her, and I'll handle the rest." Gasps echoed through the room. People turned to look at Ethan, whose face had gone white. "This footage was recovered as part of the audit," Olivia continued, her voice steady. "It shows former CEO Ethan Harper and former CFO Daniel Chen conspiring to falsify financial records using my signature to discredit my leadership and force my removal." Ethan stood, trying to speak, but security was already moving toward him. A federal agent stepped into the aisle. "Ethan Harper, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and corporate espionage." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. Ethan was led away in handcuffs, his carefully constructed comeback destroyed in minutes. Olivia watched him go, feeling the weight of months of fighting finally lift from her shoulders. After the chaos settled, she continued her presentation, outlining the new financial controls, the ethical guidelines, the transparency measures that would prevent this from ever happening again. The shareholders voted overwhelmingly to support her leadership. Later that week, members of the board approached her privately. Patterson spoke for the group. "Olivia, we owe you an apology. We doubted you when we should have trusted you. We suspended you when we should have stood by you. You protected the company," Olivia said. "I understand." "No, we protected ourselves," Charles corrected. "There's a difference. You showed real courage when we showed cowardice." Olivia accepted their apology with grace, but privately she knew she'd never fully trust them again. Trust was earned through action, not words. Her permanent appointment as CEO was formalized days later, along with the announcement of the merger creating Horizon Collective, the fusion of Harper Holdings and Llanera Group under one unified mission. The media coverage was extensive, but this time the narrative had shifted. No longer the wronged wife seeking revenge, Olivia was now recognized as a transformative leader who'd exposed corruption and rebuilt a company from its foundations. One interview request came from an unexpected source. A journalist wanted to interview both her and Ethan. The request came through Ethan's lawyer. Olivia almost declined. Then she remembered her father's words, "Win by being smart." She agreed, but only on her terms, a written interview, not face-to-face. The journalist sent the questions. Ethan's responses came first. "I let my ego destroy the best partnership I ever had. I convinced myself that I'd built everything alone, when the truth was that Olivia was the foundation. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope that by acknowledging my mistakes, someone else might learn from them." Olivia read his words multiple times, looking for manipulation or strategy. But they seemed genuine, the words of a man who'd lost everything and finally understood why. Her response was simpler. "I don't hate Ethan. I pity him. He had a chance to build something meaningful with a true partner, and he chose ego over collaboration. That's his loss, not mine. I'm too busy building the future to dwell on the past." The article, when published, became one of the most read business pieces of the year. It humanized both of them, showed the cost of ego, the power of resilience, the complexity of redemption. Weeks later, Olivia received a letter from prison. Ethan's handwriting. She debated throwing it away unread. But curiosity won. "Olivia, I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I took from you, not just credit or control, but your joy in building something. I watched you light up when talking about strategy or innovation, and instead of celebrating that, I felt threatened by it. I'm not writing to ask for anything. You owe me nothing. I just wanted you to know that what you're building now, Horizon Collective, it's everything I claimed to want but never had the courage to create. You were always the better version of us. Ethan." Olivia read the letter twice, then filed it away. It was closure of a sort. Not forgiveness, that wasn't required or expected, but acknowledgement. Sometimes that was enough. 6 months after the audit, Horizon Collective was thriving. The merger had been challenging but ultimately successful. The new mission, ethical business practices, sustainable growth, stakeholder capitalism, resonated with employees, partners, and customers. Revenue was up, but more importantly, employee satisfaction had increased by 40%. Supplier relationships were stronger. The company's reputation had transformed from aggressive competitor to industry leader in ethical business. Harvard Business School reached out to develop a case study. Other corporations began asking for consultations on implementing similar cultural changes. Olivia had become not just a CEO, but a thought leader. One afternoon, Rachel joined her for coffee, their ritual that had sustained them through everything. "Remember when you wrote day one on that whiteboard?" Rachel asked. "God, that feels like a lifetime ago." "It was 6 months ago. You've accomplished in half a year what most people can't do in a decade." Rachel raised her cup.
To you.
"And to proving that winning doesn't require becoming what you hate." Olivia clinked her cup against Rachel's. "To both of us. I couldn't have done any of this without you." The moment was interrupted by her assistant. "Miss Harper, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important." The young woman who entered was familiar, Jessica, from the summit. She looked different now, more confident, more assured. "Miss Harper, I'm so sorry to drop by unannounced. I just wanted to thank you in person." "Jessica, right? From the conference."
Yes.
"I took your advice. I left my job, and I've spent the last 6 months building my own company. We just got our first major client, and I wanted you to know that none of it would have happened without you." Olivia felt something warm settle in her chest. This was the real measure of success. Not profits or headlines, but impact on actual lives. "Tell me about your company," she said. They talked for an hour, Jessica describing her vision, her challenges, her victories. When she left, Olivia felt energized in a way board meetings never achieved. That evening, she stood in her Horizon Collective office, the same space that had once belonged to Ethan, but transformed now. The decor was different, warmer. The walls held photos of the team, quotes about leadership, a framed copy of Linera Group's original mission statement. On her desk sat a small plaque her team had given her, "Built from ashes, led with grace." She heard a knock at the door. A young intern, probably mid-20s, entered nervously. "Ms. Harper? I'm sorry to bother you, but I was wondering, could I ask you something?" "Of course." "I'm trying to decide whether to take a job offer or start my own company. Everyone says the safe choice is the job, but I don't know. How did you know when to take the risk?" Olivia smiled, remembering standing in that mansion, wedding ring on the counter. You know when staying feels more dangerous than leaving. When playing it safe means losing yourself. When the fear of regret outweighs the fear of failure. The intern nodded slowly, processing this. "Thank you. That helps." After she left, Olivia walked to the window. The city stretched out below, lights beginning to flicker on as evening fell. Somewhere out there were hundreds of Jessicas and young interns, people trying to find their courage, trying to claim their power. She'd been one of them once. Now she could help light their way. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number contained a single link to a Forbes article published minutes ago. The 50 most powerful women in business. Olivia's photo was at the top of the list. She read the accompanying profile. Olivia Harper didn't just reclaim her company. She redefined what corporate leadership can be. In an era of cutthroat competition and winner-take-all capitalism, she proved that ethics and profits aren't mutually exclusive. Horizon Collective stands as a testament to what's possible when leaders prioritize people alongside performance. She forwarded the article to her father with a simple message: "Thanks for teaching me to win smart." His response came quickly: "I always knew you would. Proud of you, kiddo." That weekend, Olivia did something she hadn't done in months. She took a full day off. No emails, no calls, no work. She walked through the city, anonymous in jeans and a baseball cap, watching people live their lives. She ended up at the park where she used to run in the early days after leaving Ethan. She sat on the same bench where she'd once cried, overwhelmed and uncertain. Now she sat in the same spot, at peace. A jogger passed by, then stopped and turned back. "Excuse me, are you Olivia Harper?" Olivia braced herself for criticism or questions about the scandal. "I just wanted to say thank you. I work in supply chain management, and what you're doing, the ethical partnerships, the fair contracts, it's changing the whole industry. Companies are starting to compete on ethics now, not just price. You started that." After the jogger left, Olivia sat for a while longer, watching the sun set over the city. Monday morning, she walked into Horizon Collective's lobby. The same marble floors she'd walked across countless times. But this time, she wasn't leaving. She wasn't running. She wasn't diminishing herself. She was home. Her keys went on her desk, not to abandon, but to anchor. This was her empire now, built by her vision, sustained by her values, a testament to what was possible when you refused to accept someone else's limitations. The final frame of her story wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was simply this: Olivia Harper at her desk, working on the next challenge, building the next solution, leading the next generation. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Winning wasn't about destroying those who'd hurt her. It was about building something so meaningful that their betrayal became irrelevant. They'd thought she wanted revenge. All she'd ever wanted was freedom. And as it turned out, they were the same thing if you earned it right. If someone spent years taking credit for your work and diminishing your worth, would you have the courage to walk away and rebuild? Or would you stay, hoping they'd finally see your value? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories about reclaiming power when everyone expects you to stay silent.